Good morning. My name is Nancy. Is that really loud? Okay. My name is Nancy Faery. I'm a member of the sabbatical team, and I use the pronouns she and her. With COVID numbers on a high rise in Erie County, we strongly encourage that if you would like to wear a mask and social distance, that might be a good idea as we gather here today, especially while singing. It doesn't look like social distancing is a real issue today. A lot of mothers out celebrating in other ways. There are some masks in a basket on the back table. Please rise in body or spirit as we sing together our gathering music this morning, which is Simple Gifts, and that can be found in the gray hymnal, I believe, on page 16. And the words will be projected up here.
Tis a gift to be simple, tis a gift to be free, tis the gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, 'twill be in the valley of love and delight. When to go and to spend, we shan't be ashamed. Tis the gift to be simple, tis the gift to be simple, come down where we ought to come down where we ought in the place just right, so we in the presence of true simplicity, true
Good morning. My name is Angela Warren, and I'm the Director of Faith Development for this congregation. Our opening words come from our beloved Mary Oliver, called Loneliness. I too have known loneliness. I too have known what it is to feel misunderstood, rejected, and suddenly not at all beautiful. O Mother Earth, your comfort is great. Your arms never withhold. It has saved my life to know this. Your rivers flowing, your roses opening in the morning. Oh, motions of tenderness.
Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Amherst. I'm Lauraine Marcus, and my pronouns are she, her, which I offer to create an inclusive space for all. I am joined up front today by Nancy Faery and Angela Warren, and our musician, Adam Schmidt. We are so glad you have chosen to be here virtually and in person. As we gather, we acknowledge that our church is built on land that was once nurtured and cherished by the First Nations people of this region, the Haudenosaunee, and the people known as the Neutrals before them. May we continue to tend to this cherished land and courageously cultivate community with all living things. It has been said that Unitarian Universalism is the religion that puts its faith in you, trusting each individual to engage in the spiritual journey and to reach our own conclusions about spiritual matters. We do that in beloved community as we support one another in faith and friendship. In that spirit, this congregation has created a covenant, a sacred promise of how we will strive to be with one another. Please join with me in speaking our covenant. Together we promise to gather in compassionate community, to celebrate diversity of thought and unity of spirit, to seek wholeness for ourselves, our children, and our world.
We begin each gathering by lighting the chalice, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism. Our flaming chalice represents the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment to foster more compassion and justice in a hurting world. Our chalice lighting words this morning come from the contemporary mystic poet Lauraine Marcus. Please join me in speaking these words. We here to bring forth our light and hold the candles of ourselves to each other. Each of us is carrying with us into worship time, cares, and concerns, joys and sorrows. Together we create the container which we can put down our burdens, knowing they are held gently by the gathered community. For those joining virtually, I invite you to give voice to that which is on your heart and perhaps type it into the chat in the live stream. For those here in the chapel, I invite you to come forward and place a stone or a shell on the table labyrinth in recognition of that which is on your heart. Please join me in this communal response. In this gathered community,
We hold one another in love.
Together we light a candle of sorrow and concern for the people of Ukraine and Russia, and indeed all of the people and the more than human family of life on earth. We include in the circle of compassion and care all those who are impacted by acts of aggression, terror. We pray for peace and compassion in our war-torn world. In this gathered community,
we hold the world in love.
In this gathered community, we often wonder about how to make visible to others the reasons for our gathering. 7 principles, or 8, are hard to fit on one sign. The 6th principle of Unitarian Universalism, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all, is one of our reasons for gathering. Yet how do we let others know that we seek to promote peace, liberty, and justice? One of the first conversations I had after returning to service here in March after a month off was with Lauraine Marcus. The Tulip Crabapple Village that she facilitates once again brought up the question, how are we seen? They spoke about flagging the front property line with Earth Day flags, then pride flags, and flags to show solidarity with Ukraine. And literally right after that, I opened an email from Harris Seeds in Rochester. They were donating all of the proceeds from sunflower seed sales to Ukraine relief efforts. And then the aha moment happened. I ordered over a pound of seeds. I know they don't look like much in these 2 little bags, but the potential within, let me tell you what, it's huge. Shh, the seeds don't know it yet. All 11,000 of them. Your Green Justice team, with the help of some other ministries within this congregation, namely the Amherst Little Free Pantry and our clothing ministry, are currently forming a cohesive plan for a long-anticipated Living Green celebration, currently scheduled for the weekend of September 9th to 11th. Guess when the sunflower should bloom? 90 days. Yep. 90 days. Plant when the soil's 60 degrees. When is that going to be? Taking into account the average last light spring frost date and adding on a little bit to let the soil warm and to account for 30% deviation from the average last frost date. Oh, wait. Maybe it's easier to count backwards from the target date of September 9th. To August 9th is 30-ish, July 9th is 30th, June 9th is 30th, that's 90 days. In conclusion, we need to plant a whole mess of these sleeping giants by June 9th. And plant we will. We have permission. They'll be planted along the front of the memorial garden that is in the front yard, and all the way around the fenced-in playground area to the side. And today I invite you after service to join me and my faith development activity helpers to take a few home with you and to talk about sharing in this effort to help us be seen and to help the war-torn people of Ukraine and Russia be seen, to align with peace, liberty, and justice for all on this Mother's Day, and again on Memorial Day weekend as the seeds are planted in wide ribbons for all to eventually see. Planted into the darkness to emerge into the light of day beyond the soil, each a symbol of resilience, community, and immense beauty. We know that even those who are without country can still cherish their motherland in their souls.
Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child, a long way from my home. Sometimes I wish I could fly like a bird up in the sky. Sometimes I wish I could fly like a bird up in the sky. Sometimes I wish I could fly like a bird up in the sky, closer to my home. Motherless children have a hard time. Motherless children have such a hard time. Motherless children have such a really hard time. A long way from home. Sometimes I feel like freedom is near. Sometimes I feel like freedom is near. Sometimes I feel like freedom is near. But we're so far from home. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child, a long way from my home. Sometimes I feel like it's closer now. Sometimes I feel like the kingdom is near. Sometimes I feel like a kingdom is now, but we're so far from home. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child, away from home.
Thank you. That's beautiful. Mother May I, who played that childhood game when there was a mother chosen and all the other children would line up, working their way to the great mother by taking baby steps or giant steps, but only with permission. The first to reach the mother was the winner. You would get sent back to the starting line if you forgot to say, Mother May I. On the second Sunday of May, we celebrate Mother's Day, a day which can evoke a plethora of images, as well as emotional responses: joy, gratitude, pain, fear, inadequacy, love, tenderness, guilt, resentment, unmet needs, comfort, longing, joy, safety, abandonment, regrets, loss, peace. That simple little game, Mother May I, housed many subliminal messages. It's a competition to win mother's affection. Always be polite and ask permission. The emphasis was on being perfect. Perhaps that we are not capable of thinking or deciding for ourselves. Losing favor with the mother meant you might not be called on again, and you might lose the game. This sounds like it's just a game. However, what we grow up with affects how we perceive ourselves and the expectations we put on others and ourselves. Games, books, television shows, commercials, faith communities, clothing, our language, and our cultural norms, they all affect how we perceive reality. I grew up in the 50s and 60s with mother role models that were all white: June Cleaver, Harriet Nelson, Carol Brady, Edith Bunker came a little later. These heightened patriarchal portrayals of TV women of TV mothers creating images of what mothers were supposed to be, instilling conflicting values in us. Perfect mothers who vacuumed, wearing pearl necklaces, greeted their hard-working husbands with slippers, a beer, or pipe. These were projected images in an attempt to solidify or create roles of women in a rapidly changing culture. Remember, the adult women, which many of you are, in this age bracket were raised in the 40s and 50s. The parents of people raised in the 50s were born came out of the 20s and 30s. That's what I'm trying to say. They were products of the 19th Amendment, which gave women right to vote. World War II proved that women were capable in uniform, in the factories, and at home. Women did well. Post-World War II posed threats to the system of patriarchy. Many attempts were made to keep women in their place. It didn't work, because then came the 60s. Archetypal women have been part of mythology and lore throughout history. Gaia, the Greek goddess of the earth, the indigenous people of North America, the turtle was the representative of Mother Earth. Nana Baluku is an African mother goddess who brought forth the moon and the sun. Isis, the Egyptian goddess who protected the dead, governed the sky and natural world while watching over children. Demeter was a Greek goddess of the harvest grains. Juno, the Roman goddess of time, marriage, cycles, and childbirth. In an attempt to understand the world that we live in, archetypes are created and projected onto other people to define and satisfy those human, sort of nebulous, universal spiritual needs. Maybe to have a sense of control, to be loved, to be nurtured, cared for, and caring. A sense of fairness, a sense of justice, a need to be heard, a need to be understood, acceptance, happiness, a sense of belonging, hope, meaning and purpose. These spiritual needs are the basis of our Unitarian Universalist principles. What are the consequences when the norms of society stifle one's spiritual needs, their inner knowing, their calling, their beliefs or sense of self? What happens individually and as a society when basic human spiritual needs don't match the archetypes being presented to us daily? What happens when we ourselves and our mothers, or other people we know, don't fit into that mold? When we're not self-sacrificing, persistent in all things, all caring, all knowing, patient in every situation, or incapable of creating intense bonds? What happens is we internalize with self-doubt, guilt, resentments, fear. We perhaps experience separation and loss of connection to self and others. We're prone to the loss of spiritual connection to the earth. We need to find ways to separate out the wisdom of our ancestors that helps us to grow from those messages, those old messages that keep us from living our truth. Seek those who hold us up. Now, without anyone's permission, I am going to change the Mother May I rules. Mother, may I let go of resentments. Mother, may I give myself permission to take care of myself. Mother, may I treat myself and others with dignity and respect. Mother, may I be a better steward of the earth. Mother, may I slow down. Mother, may I listen to that inner still voice of love and compassion. Mother, may I release and heal myself. Mother, may I find joy. So may it be.
Arise then, women of this day. Arise, all women who have hearts, whether our baptism be that of water or of tears. We, women of one country, will be too tender of those of another country to allow our sons to be trained to injure theirs. From the bosom of the devastated earth, a voice goes up with our own. It says, disarm, disarm. The sword of murder is not the balance of justice. Julia Ward Howe, 1870. from her Mother's Day proclamation for peace. Too few Americans are aware that early advocates of Mother's Day in the United States originally envisioned it as a day of peace, to honor and support mothers who lost sons and husbands to the carnage of the Civil War. In 1870, nearly 40 years before it became an official U.S. holiday in 1914, social justice advocate Juliet Ward Howe issued her inspired Mother's Day proclamation, which called upon mothers of all nationalities to band together to promote the amicable settlement of international questions, the great and general interests of peace. She envisioned a day of solemn council where women from all over the world could meet to discuss the means whereby to achieve world peace. Years and wars passed. As the call for a Mother's Day carried on, it gained new momentum and finally became a national holiday in the early 1900s with the lead of Anna Jarvis, who had been inspired by her mother, also named Anna Jarvis, who had worked with Julia Ward Howe in earlier efforts for Mother's Day. While Mother's Day has presently lost much of its early edge for justice, it's important to note some of the underpinning intentions and recommit ourselves to its prescient calling. In the spirit of Julia Ward Howe's original call, this occasion can be a time to dedicate ourselves on behalf of the mothers, fathers, sisters, and brothers everywhere to rise up and protect our most vulnerable by calling for our leaders to make a directional shift in the course of our nation. There is no need more urgent than addressing the devastation brought on by violence in all of its forms, affecting the lives of untold millions in our nation and around the world. Then we may finally see the carnage and devastation of violence and war fade into its own history. There could be, of course, no better way to honor our mothers.
I'd like to invite you into some moments of reflective breathing and singing. The words are, when I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. Adam will introduce the melody. When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. What has brought you peace this week in the midst of all of it? Where have you turned for help or guidance to navigate all the complexities of this slow-going, agonizing spring of 2022? Where has unexpected help or encouragement come from? I don't know every single one of your stories, but I do know some. And as I look around this room, I know many of you, like me, don't really want to deal with this day. And I am personally grateful to be reminded that I'm not the only one. You see, my mother took her own life almost 11 years ago after a long struggle. And the feelings of betrayal still haunts me. And the good memories are often difficult to conjure. To be here in this space with all of you, with all of our complicated emotions about motherhood and mothering, is a true blessing. And to just hold one another in beloved community. To listen to one another's stories and seek to understand with compassion and empathy. To lift up our happy memories surrounding mothering, and when they don't come, to offer a shoulder, a place for tears as the imperfections and disappointments of our histories bubble up. Here, we don't have to be afraid to show our scars. Amidst all these complications leading up to this Mother's Day, unexpected help came in the mail. Just the other day, I received a note from church member Ellen Muma's neighbor, who's also a neighbor of Adam's, incidentally, my fourth grade teacher, Sue Lenning, and my personal best teacher ever. We reconnected a few years ago because of this church, when we found ourselves seated next to one another at Buffalo State at the Birchville Penny Art Center on November 10th, 2015, where Dr. Robin Wall Kimmerer was presenting the Honorable Harvest. I turned to Susie, seated directly on my left, just before the presentation began, and I said, "You feel really familiar." It took just a few name drops, and the recognition was mutual. We hadn't seen one another in 30 years, and the last time she saw me, I was an awkward adolescent with long straight hair and those little initials on the big round glasses. Do you remember those from the 80s? Yet, the happy recollection of that long ago teacher-student relationship was overwhelming. We hugged intently, and we have been in touch ever since. Why was Mrs. Lenning, as she was known way back then, the best teacher ever? Because she taught me responsibility. Who is daring enough to expect that a fourth grader would be capable of finding her own direction? She taught me not to ask permission to go here or there, but to tell her, I am going here or there. I need to accomplish this thing or that, and I will be back in the time it takes. Don't worry, teacher. You can trust me. Thank you for trusting me, and I won't take too much time. This teaching followed me all through my own mothering of 3 daughters. It is what I sought to teach them: to go, to do, to grow, to wander and wonder, to come back, to return, and to remember. The teachings of the Honorable Harvest from Kimmerer are similar. We tell our Earth Mother what we may need, yet we are also called to not take too much, something our extractive society has failed to do, and all of us are suffering that expense. The misunderstanding that our Mother Earth has as many resources as we think we need at any given moment, not the understanding of the pace of growth and recovery, the nature's pace that will answer if we observe and listen. And she will give us just enough. This, my friends, is faith. As we share actual seeds after service today, right out there, if you look back there as you go out, the tiny little bit of supplies we need are right at that table on the patio. We'll also share stories. And we'll remember always that the listening is just as important as the telling. Thank you all for listening to my story, for mothering me, and for mothering this place called UU Amherst.
For All the Mothers by Linda Susan Ulrich. For all the mothers and mother figures, the grandmothers, aunts, and extended family members who mother, the soon-to-be mothers and the wish they were mothers, the never wanted to be mothers, and the it's complicated mothers. The birth mothers, foster mothers, adopted mothers, stepmothers, the used-to-be dad mothers, and the more than one mom mothers. The single mothers, separated mothers, stay-at-home mothers, unhoused mothers, the grieving mothers, those who grieve their mothers, and those whose grief is complex. For all the communities that mother, and for all who depend on the great mother, you are held and beloved.
Thank you for joining our gathering today. I hope you have been inspired and uplifted by sharing this time together. You can support the work and mission of this congregation with your financial contributions. For those in the chapel today, we have baskets at the back of the sanctuary to receive your gifts. For those participating virtually, I invite you to take a moment to visit our website, uuamherst.org, and click on the giving link or text 833-987-1968. And with that, we will extinguish our flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Please rise in body or spirit and join together. If here you have found freedom, take it with you into the world. If you have found comfort, go and share it with others. If you have dreamed dreams, help one another that they may come true. If you have known love, give some back to a bruised and hurting world. I ask you to go in peace, and please stop outside on the patio or go to the poetry session. I think the poetry session is in the Reeb room. Planting seeds is outside. It's a beautiful sunny day. There is no coffee this week. However, if you feel so inclined, there is a sign-up list to provide coffee in the future. Go in peace.